Namaste. Welcome to our second session on yogic philosophy. And today we're talking about the 4 yogic pathways. So it's said that there's 4 different unique ways to attain self-realization and God actualization. And those are the pathways of karma yoga, which is the yoga of action, Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of devotion, Guyana Yoga, which is the yoga of knowledge and wisdom, and then Raja Yoga, which is the yoga of the eightfold path known as the Ashtanga limbs. It's the royal road of yoga. Raja means royal king. It's the way. It's considered the king way to actualization of self and to God realization. So let's begin with karma yoga. I think most of us have heard of karma. So karma means an action that we perform, and our life is all karma. Near the moment we're born, we start creating karma. No, karma is not a bad thing. It has a bad rap. You know, they say, oh, that's bad karma. But there's good karma. And then, of course, there's karma that leave greater consequences. But it's not necessarily bad because it's through karma that we learn and we evolve and grow. So I see karma like the boomerang. You throw the boomerang, eventually that boomerang is going to come back. So that's really what karma is. What you sow, you will reap. So if you sow beautiful seeds of flowers, fruit trees, then you'll reap the fruits of that. Yes, you'll see the gorgeous flowers in your lawn, in your yard. You'll be able to pick the raspberries, the apples, the strawberries. Now, if you throw seeds of anger, of hate, of darkness, then you're going to get that back in your life. And so that's really what karma means. But now when we say karma yoga, it's yoga of action. And as you know, yoga leads to self-actualization and self-realization. So performing actions that lead us to that liberated state. So a really great example, of course, is Mother Teresa. She is a very good example of what karma yoga looks like. Selfless service. So it means we do things out of the goodness of our heart to help others who are suffering and to make their lives better. But there's a catch to it. Many times people do things and somewhat secretively, they want something in return for their actions, for their good actions. They want to be either applaud for it, they want to receive a certificate for it, they want a pat on the back. That's not performing karma yoga. You have to be completely free of wanting anything back in return. You're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. And in essence, what you're doing is you're serving the divine. You're serving Source, the universe. And you're trying to better people's lives by opening your heart and helping to make their day a little bit better. So that is karma yoga. And we can do it in very small ways. We can volunteer. We can do Meals on Wheels. We can go and help at the food bank. We can volunteer in classrooms to help learn, teach children how to read. There's many things we can do. You can offer money. That's also karma yoga, giving money to UNICEF and helping those in other countries that are suffering. Those are all actions of karma yoga. And really, it's about doing it out of the goodness of your heart. And we have to be very careful. Sometimes people do things and they want to be seen in a certain way. They want to be seen by others as that they're loving, that they're so sweet and kind. And then again, that is also not karma yoga, because then now we're doing it to create a picture of ourselves. So then we don't get the benefit of that evolution. We have to completely let go of ego tendencies. It's completely being selfless in everything we do, in every action. There is no hidden agenda at play here. So that's karma yoga. So what I'd like you to do for this next session, until we get together for the next session, I'd like you to contemplate on what something you could do for a little while, maybe for a month, that could be said is karma yoga. Maybe you can help a neighbor with watching a child. See if there's something you can do that would be of karma yoga. Now we'll move on to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is very, very important because it's all about being heart-centered, living from the heart, and really inviting the divine into the heart space. And we can show our devotion for God, for Source, whatever you'd like to name it, or whatever you revere, or whoever makes your heart sing. Draw that person into your heart, and then devote from your heart in your meditation, in every action that you perform in your life. Everything you do in your life, let it be in service and loving reverence to the one or to that higher being that you revere. So some of you maybe are Christian and you feel called to call in for Jesus and devote your heart to Jesus. Now, how can we devote ourselves to something greater? We can do it through song, by singing. Yeah, in yoga, we have kirtan, mantra singing, bhajans, devotional songs. In churches, we see people singing to the Lord, right? So those are things, actions of bhakti. We can do a ritual every morning where we praise the 5 elements. We thank, that's devotion, thanking the 5 elements of water, air, space, fire, earth. For ultimately, we are made out of those 5 elements. We can do it through prayer. We can visualize and just thank for this healthy body, for this healthy mind. Of gratitude is devotion. Feeling grateful for the presence of your loved ones, feeling grateful for everything that's present in your life. That's also practicing Bhakti Yoga. Now, it is said in some of the scriptures that you can have all the knowledge in your life and you can do acts of kindness, but if you don't know how to devote and be devotional and show that love and let the divine love come in, it's said that you can't reach the ultimate state of enlightenment. So it's really important that we know how to open our heart to it so that the divine can come in. Yeah, and Bhakti really stands for love as well. And what you'll find as you go on this yogic path, as you're here to learn how to be a teacher of yoga, you yourself are undergoing a transformation. You yourself are evolving and expanding your understanding of what yoga is and your understanding of the different types of love that exist. Yeah, so as you evolve, your state of ability of loving and feeling love also evolves. Yeah, we have the passionate love, which is on the lower state. Then the love we have for our children becomes a little higher. And then there is love for the divine, for God. And that's when we start to get into those higher states of ecstasy and love. A love so profound that there are no human words available to us in our language to even explain to you what this divine love feels like. Yes, when just a mere drop of that love, and it will set you free for lifetimes. Yes, it is such exquisite It's unbelievable. There's nothing in this world that could even come close to it. You can't buy it. You can find it anywhere. You have to experience it through your heart. So Bhakti Yoga, singing your heart out. Yeah, we already have these phrases. Sing your heart out. Yeah, sing your heart open so that the love of the divine can enter your heart and that you're bathed with this love. And once you are submersed by that love, it will change you forever. So that's Bhakti Yoga. And then we move to Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the yoga of wisdom, of knowledge. And there's many people who really like to read books about, Vedanta, Advaita, the different philosophies. They're really intrigued about what's the truth, and they want to read and find. And so that's Jnana Yoga. And it's still a really important part of the yogic path to continue to learn and expand our awareness and our understanding. And what you'll find as you're purchasing some books for this yoga training, you read it and some of it might not register as deeply. And what will happen is you'll put those books away in your cupboard. And let's say 3 years from now, you pick that book up again and you start reading it again. Suddenly, the light bulbs are going off like crazy. And you realize that you are having greater understanding because as you start to walk on this yogic path, your awareness starts to shift and get greater. So your understanding of the literature starts to increase and everything starts to make better sense. So there's an evolution happening of your consciousness, which is awareness. Okay. Now, if we don't add a sprinkle of heart with this wisdom, then it's said that we cannot hit that ultimate attainment. Yogic wisdom and the path of Guyana, when it comes together with Bhakti Yoga, can be very, very an accelerated way to reach that enlightenment state. Now, I'd like you to think, what can you do in your daily life? How can you add some bhakti? Can you take a moment of your day to write down what you're grateful for? Can you think something greater for all that which is present in your life? Are you open to receive grace and the synchronicities that are constantly reminding us that we're on the right path and that something greater is always watching over you? Whether it's that butterfly that just flew by your face, or that red cardinal bird that swooped in front of you, whether it's a couple of dimes in front of your feet, whether it's a song that reminds you of somebody that is no longer here on this earth. These are all gifts from the greatest source, divine, God, whatever you like to call it, to remind you that you're always taken care of. There's always something greater than you, loving you deeply, maybe even loving you more than you love yourself. So when you bring the Bhakti Yoga together with the Jnana Yoga, with the Yoga of Wisdom, great acceleration can happen in the yogic path and in your evolution of your consciousness. And now we get to the royal road of yoga, Raja Yoga. And this is where we'll dive deep into the 8-limbed path, the Ashtanga path of the Yamas, the Niyamas, Asanas, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Now the Yamas and the Niyamas are the first 2 limbs of the yogic path. And these really have nothing to do with the practice of yoga, but these are things that we observe in our daily life. At least, hopefully, we observe these in our daily life. But I'll start with the 5 yamas. These are your personal moral observances or constraints. And the first one is Ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence. And when we think of non-violence, we think about not hurting someone else, not hurting yourself. Ultimately, not hurting yourself must always come first. Because if you don't hurt yourself, you're less likely to hurt someone else. Now, how can we now perform things that are not in alignment with Ahimsa? Sometimes we may use words that are unkind. Words are powerful. Maybe we're sometimes saying things that aren't always very nice, can be hurtful. So that would be an violent act, or talking behind someone's back and not having the courage to tell them in their face is also not practicing Ahimsa. And let's say you're a vegetarian, and let's say you are very drawn out and your iron is really low. You need to eat some red meat. That is not being violent towards the animal. It would be actually very loving for you to take care of yourself and take a few meals with red meat to bring the levels of iron up in your body so that you are healthy. Remember, you're above the animal. You are the human being. And you must take care of yourself and love yourself enough. Otherwise, that will be an act of violence. You see, that's a very different way of looking at it. A lot of yogis are vegetarian because they don't want violence to happen against animals. And that's true. We should protect our animals. We should be kind. But when it comes to yourself, if you need meat to ground yourself or for medical reasons, then it's the most loving thing to do. It would be very harmful for you to not eat meat then for a while. So we have to look at the whole picture when we look at violence and non-violence. For example, when we see, sometimes on Facebook, we see things being said that are unkind. And sometimes when you're on the yogic path, the best way sometimes is not to even respond. Because it is really true, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Instead, when they go low, you go high. As Michelle Obama says, it's wonderful because it's the same principle that we choose the path of less resistance, of less likely to create violence. So we need to make sure that we're not creating any negative karma through our actions. In that way, we always stay in the performance of ahimsa, of non-violence. So this is a big, big subject, the ahimsa. For example, when we relate it to the yogic practice, if you're in class and you know that there is a student who has issue with the wrist, and your peak pose in the class is wheel, the big back bend of chakra, dhanurasana. And what's happening is the person is sleeping into their ego. They want to do it. They know they can do it, and they're pushing through, even though they know they shouldn't be performing that because of their wrist. That would not be practicing ahimsa to that person. The ahimsa way would be to say at that moment, no, I'm not giving in to the urge to show the teacher that I can get into this posture where everybody around the room, because that's coming from the ego self, which always needs validation, which always needs to be seen. When we stay in a true authentic nature, we can make the decision, say, you know what, it's not right for me today because my wrists are sore. I'm going to just do a little birch pose. That would be practicing ahimsa. So you see how vast this ahimsa goes and in how different ways that can play out. So your homework is for you, can you observe yourself for the next 7 days and see how Ahimsa shows up in your life. Are you overeating when you know that you're going to feel terrible after and that it wasn't really good for your body? That's also not practicing Ahimsa. So see if you can reflect on that. And I'd like you to write that down, those experiences, and just say, day 1, for example, oh, I wanted to get really angry at my girlfriend because I felt triggered. And I wanted to say unkind things back, but I didn't because I remembered Ahimsa. And then an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. So I paused and I reflected and I chose the higher way. And then you can write about that experience just like I just told you. And then you see how evolution starts to happen. You took a moment, you broke a pattern of how you normally react. And now you're able to break it by practicing Ahimsa. So see if you can do that for this next week. And I'd love to see your reflection on Ahimsa. So let's go to the second observation in the Yama, which is Satya. Satya. Satya means truth, truthfulness, being honest. Now, most people think about being honest to others. No, in actual fact, in the yogic way of living, we're talking about being honest with yourself. You being honest with you. How many times do you do things because you're too afraid to say no? Are you being honest with yourself? No. Are you honest with the other person? No, indirectly you're not, because you'd really like to say no, but you can't. So being honest with yourself. Are you doing the things you want to do, or are you giving yourself excuses? Are you often going into victimhood? So have those dialogues with yourself and see if you're honest in all areas of your life. And then you can go into how you relate to the outside world. Are you honest with other people? And of course, that has a huge spectrum. And there's many little white lies that we can create. Now, when we used to come together for yoga teacher training in a group, we used to play the game, 2 truths and a lie, and then the person had to figure out what was the lie and which things were the 2 truths. And it's interesting. There's some people that are really good at making it look like the lie is the truth. So the person who really hurts in the end is the person who is saying the untruths, because it's a bad action. It's not a pure action. So it always comes back to us when we're untruthful. So yoga is about being honest in all moments of life, where you're in the moment, what is happening in the now, and being honest about everything. So see if you can also reflect this week. You're going to reflect actually on all the 5 yamas. How does Satya show up for you in your life? How many times have you had to kind of go against truthfulness? Yes? Okay, great. So the third one is Asteya. Asteya means stealing or non-stealing. Steya is stealing. Asteya, whenever there's an A in front of a word in the Sanskrit, it means the opposite. So steya is stealing. Asteya is non-stealing. So we're talking about taking things from others that don't belong to us. And this is also very fast. This is not just about stealing things. We could steal people's ideas. We can steal people's words or quotes. We could steal people's time. You know, that friend on the phone that's always, you know, taking a lot of your energy and dumps all her emotional baggage onto you, and you kind of sit there and you're too afraid. So Satya kind of sometimes coexists with Asteya. You're too afraid to be honest with your friend, and therefore the friend continues to steal from you your time. So watch how that shows up. And then it makes you also understand when you're talking to someone else, am I taking their time? Am I stealing from their energy? And it's a very different way of looking at it, right? We're also looking at our actions that sometimes are very automatic, kind of these rituals that we have and we're not really mindful of. And a good example, a yogic example, of course, is you go to yoga class, and I'm sure many have, that they go to a specific part of the room, part of the studio, and they have to have that same spot. Now, I know indirectly it's not stealing, but maybe there's someone else that would like to have that spot sometimes, and you're not, it doesn't even cross your mind. You're like, nope, my spot, I always go here. But yoga is now asking you, I'm always at the same spot. Maybe I should allow someone else to enjoy the spot sometime. I should go to a different spot. So that's also considered Asteya. Or if you're that person in class that's always seeking attention, then you're stealing attention away from potentially other people that may not be as outgoing. So you see how vast this non-stealing is. It's not just stealing an object or stealing money or, being a thief. Now, this is about just really subtle things that we're sometimes not even aware of. So see if you can reflect on Asteya. How does Asteya show up for you in your daily life? And I'd love to see your reflections on that. So we'll move now to the fourth, which is called Aparigraha. Aparigraha, which means non-hoarding. Non-hoarding. Attachment, basically. Yes, a lot of us, well, some people have it more than others. But some people like to keep everything they have. They don't like to throw it away. So my challenge to you is, I'd like you to go into your closet, and I'd like you to be really honest with yourself. And I'd like you to get rid of the clothing in there that you've had for over a year and that you haven't worn once. See if you have the ability to go into your closet and be really honest with yourself. Satya, performing Satya as well. And can you say, yes, I haven't worn for a year. I'm going to give it away to someone else. Yeah, that's a form of aparigraha, not hoarding all your clothes, thinking, oh, well, maybe one day I'll wear it. And just say, be honest. I didn't wear it last year, probably won't wear it again, and give it away. So that's a form of aparigraha, really starting to weed out things you don't really need. Also becoming mindful how you consume things. Yeah, so instead of buying things in containers or bags, try to, use a reusable bag and put your apples in the reusable bag instead of the plastic bags. That's also considered non-hoarding, because you bring all those plastic bags home. Maybe you put them all in somewhere and it starts to increase, which is also a form of hoarding. Also, when it comes to grocery shopping, do you overbuy? Do you always feel like you need to have more than you're really consuming? That's also a form of hoarding. Or buying things, too many things that you don't really need. That's also a form of hoarding. And hoarding is very close to attachment. And the yoga pathway is really about learning to detach yourself from things, but also from people. Yes. So hoarding friends, holding on to friends that maybe no longer good for you, but you just want to be able to tell people, oh, I have lots of friends. You just don't want to let them go on Facebook or Instagram, but yet they're no longer serving you at all. Let go, release them. That's a part of practicing aparigraha, non-hoarding. So really want to get honest with yourself this week and say, where can I let certain things go? What can I simplify in my life? Clothing, food-wise, buying clothes-wise. Look at your friends. Who are you holding on to that maybe you can just kind of release in loving kindness? So I'd like you to reflect on that for this week, and be honest with yourself and be courageous. This is a courageous act to really being able to let go of certain things that no longer serve us. It can feel a little frightening, especially to the ego. Then we come to the last yama, and it's called Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is sense control. I don't really like to use the word celibacy, but it is the direct translation of celibacy. But I like to say sense control. It's controlling the input of the five senses. We live in a society right now where there's an overindulgence happening to our five senses. Now, if we just start with the eyes, when you're driving, there's a lot of images coming to us, billboards, signs on buses, benches have advertising on it. Certain shops have big neon lights, come here, shop here. So there's a lot of distraction that the senses are pulled out through the eyes. And we also have to be very careful what we allow into our eyes. So be mindful about what you watch on TV. What do you let in through the lenses of your eyes? Because what goes in your eyes goes into your consciousness. The five senses feed your consciousness. So being mindful about what comes into the eyes, then also what you're listening to. What kind of music do you listen to? Who do you listen to? Are you always watching the news and there's a lot of negativity coming in? See if you can purify and maybe don't watch as much or listen as much to the radio. And if you do listen to something, let it be uplifting. Let it uplift your spirit. Or maybe listen to a podcast that is uplifting you and is creating positivity and is allowing your consciousness to elevate. Then we have the sense of taste. Being mindful, are we being controlled by our sense of taste? Do we have to have a sugary thing every day? Do we need that cup of coffee at the specific time? That means you're being controlled by an external substance, and that's against the yogic pathway. You should always be in control, and a substance or something outside of you should not be able to control you. So see if you can let go of certain controls of what we digest, what we eat. Then we have the sense of smell. And the sense of smell, of course, is a very important one. It warns us when something's not quite right to eat. But let your senses, your sense of smell, maybe burn some incense or have some fragrance like an essential oil that elevates your spirit. Surround yourself with positivity, because the senses are helping us to evolve and elevate our experience and also give rise to enjoyment, of course. But we must stay in control. We don't want to become a slave to our five senses. And then, of course, we have the sense of touch. And the sense of touch, of course, it's important that, especially as women, that we're not afraid to touch ourselves. It's a very taboo thing to touch. And we'll come into this with Ayurveda. You'll get a session on what Ayurveda is. In Ayurveda, it's very promoted to do Abhyanga, which is self-massaging with oil. You massage your whole body with oil, and it's very nourishing, anti-aging. It helps to defy gravity in the body, tones the organs, keeps the skin tone of your color nice and radiant, and gives you that glow. So Brahmacharya is basically controlling what you allow into your five senses. And you can start very small. If you tend to watch, it could be a mundane ritual. You flick that TV on first thing in the morning. Don't do it. Put something else on. Put maybe some nice, relaxing music on. You know, if you have like a big breakfast, maybe have a smaller breakfast. Start to change up certain rituals that you have and make sure that they're in the highest good for you and that you're not a slave to the five senses. Now, why did they call it celibacy? So it's sad, as I said earlier, when you come into that enlightenment state, that samadhi, when you hit that full absorption into the lotus in the heart, there is such overwhelming feeling of joy, intrinsic joy. It is said it is 1,000 times greater than the greatest orgasm. And I remember experiencing this state of bliss, and I had this light bulb moment, and I realized, oh my gosh, this is why they could be celibate, because you don't need anybody. You can bring the Shakti energy from the base of the spine up through the body, and it gives rise to a feeling which is 1,000,000 times greater than that of sexual intercourse. And this is why I understood how these yogis, these advanced yogis and these monks could be in celibacy and could renounce that part of themselves. Now, I'm not here to say that you need to do that at all. You can enjoy that. It's a very sacred part of human connection. But everything needs to be in balance and not. We in a society that is of excess. Yeah, there's so much excess. There's too much of everything. And the senses are overloaded. And actually, our taste becomes dull. Our senses become dull because they're overloaded with stimuli. So when we start to refine it, you'll notice that everything starts to taste better. Everything starts to look more clear. Touch starts to feel a lot more sensuous. Everything starts to taste much greater. Your hearing becomes much faster. So give it a try and see where you can sort of make sure that what comes into your five senses is more positive, and then have that Satya, that truth, have the truthfulness to say, no, I don't want to do that today. No, I'm not going to go for coffee today. I'm going to have time from just me, just to be with me. So I really look forward to your reflections of Ahimsa, nonviolence. How can you be more loving towards yourself and to others? Satya. How can you be more honest with yourself, foremost and firstmost? And then how can you be more truthful to others around you? Asteya, non-stealing. Observe where maybe you'd never thought that you were kind of stealing someone's energy or time. See if you can reflect on that. Or maybe you have an energy vampire in your life and maybe you're becoming more aware of it. Remember, sometimes you show up as the teacher for your friends. They're not going to learn if you don't show them what they're doing. The most loving thing is to say, hey, I love talking to you, but I don't like talking 2 hours because I feel so depleted after, but I love talking to you for half an hour. Then they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was draining you so much. And now you've made them more aware so that they don't do it to others. They're more mindful. So don't be afraid to show up for your friends in that capacity. Then the fourth one is Aparigraha. How can you let go more of certain things that are no longer serving you? And then the final one that we just discussed, Brahmacharya. How can you refine your senses? What can you let go of? What could you do better to elevate the experiences that are coming through the five senses? So this concludes today's yogic philosophy session. Next time we come together, we'll talk about the niyamas, which are the personal observances. Yeah, so they kind of sound like the 10 commandments, somewhat similar, but then they're also very, very different. So until next time, have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.